I've given away about 60 books in the last month alone. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to play Florence Nightingale. It actually makes me feel a bit ill how many books I have to give away. But I just wanted to touch on this subject. In this video, I want to talk to you about why I don't or can't physically keep the books that I read, even some books that I truly love. I'm going to go through some of my recent reads and go through all my reviews, tell you which ones I'm getting rid of and which ones I'm keeping. I'm also going to do a mini book tour so you can see all my shelves and stuff and see why I just don't physically have the space in a 2-bedroom council house with 2 kids to keep the books that I love. I wish I could keep all the books and build up a 1,000 book library, but it's just not practical. And I always say on this page, I'm going to try and keep it real. I want normal people to know that their normal lives and normal book nooks are just to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Celebrated. I think we should celebrate normal. So stick around to the end of this video for book reviews, all things book related, bookshelf tours, and I've also got some exciting plans regarding fantasy standalone books that I want to do in future videos, and I need your help to kind of plan them videos. So yeah, let's get into it. Don't forget to subscribe as well. Right, we're going to get into book reviews now, but I'm going to tell you what genres are here, just because some of you will probably be thinking I'm going to skip this video so you don't read what I read. So we've got general fiction, crime/thriller, general fiction, lit RPG, fantasy. I'm also going to be reviewing A Song of Achilles in this video and Fight Club by Chuck. I don't know how you say his name, but anyway, that fella. I'm going to dive straight into these. A lot of these books I'm going to be giving away for obvious reasons, shelf space. I'll talk to you about that again later. So, first one, The Night Road. This is in no particular order. This is not the last book I finished. I didn't enjoy this book. I rated it 2.5 stars. I have read The Nightingale by this author in the past. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought she was a fantastic writer. It was a brilliant story. In all fairness, I was probably always going to love that because I love historical stuff. I like reading about Auschwitz, World War II, Poland kind of setting. So that had a tick already. This book, completely different. This follows a young girl who was in the foster system. Basically, she's been failed by every family she's ever been to, and then a social worker comes up to her one day and she's like, "Oi duck, I've got some good news for you. I found a long lost auntie." And she's like, "What? I've got an auntie. Can I live with you?" She's like, "Yeah, of course you can." So she goes to live with this auntie. This auntie's class. She's really good, but she's quite poor. The main character then goes to a school, and in this school she finds this little geeky girl who likes reading books, and she's like, "Woo, hey friend." They make friends, but this girl's from quite an affluent family. She's got a sexy twin brother, obviously, and they all become friends. They've got like a little friend triangle going on. Now, the mum of this affluent family, she's just vile. Honestly, she's one of them overbearing, overprotective parents that just won't let her kids do anything, which forces the kids to make mistakes. And most of the mistakes in this book could have been avoided if the mum had just given the kids a bit of freedom. But on the flip side, the book gets a lot of reviews. So I would imagine a lot of people can relate to how hard it is being a parent and finding that balance between trying to protect your kids but also letting them enjoy life a little bit. I just couldn't carry on. Every single time I got to Jude's chapters, I just wanted to shut book. I wanted to yeet it out my window. I didn't want to read anything about her. She was just annoying as anything. So this book just missed for me. Honestly, I couldn't read another page about this woman. So yeah, look, reading's subjective. I think this is rated over 4 stars on Goodreads. Try it if you want. You'll probably love it. I'm just very character driven and I didn't want to read another word about that woman. So next up, this is actually my recent read, The Defence by Steve Kavanagh, his name is. Eddie Flynn's the character in the book. I read a lot of fantasy, or at least at the minute I read a lot of fantasy. But between reading fantasy books, I like to have a bit of a breather. I should probably have a breather when I talk, because I just talk. But anyway, these are my breathers. Crime books, police procedural books. I'd never read, or at least I thought I'd never read, a Steve Kavanagh book before. It turns out I've read a book from this actual series called 13. After I'd finished 13, I was like, that book slapped, that was so good. And then someone was like, "Oh, have you read the rest of the series?" And I was like, "Series? What do you mean series?" They were like, "Yeah, it's part of a series." So I was like, "Oh, shut the front door." Because I like to read series in order. And I know they can be read as standalones, but I like to read them in order. So for yonks, I've been on the hunt for book 1 of this series, which is the Eddie Flynn series, and I found it in a charity shop for 50p, along with The Plea, which is book 2 in the same series. I rated this 4 star. I think I was probably a bit harsh on it. It slaps. It's very good. One of my main issues with most crime/police procedural series is that the authors don't spend much time actually building a backstory for the character. So you can't fall in love with the character. You just kind of take them away with the plot and the twists and the crime side of things. but I always like to get involved with characters and feel like they're my best friends, or like I can support them through a tough time. This gets straight into it. This follows a man called Eddie Flynn, who is not perfect by any means, is a recovering alcoholic. He put a lot of hours and time into becoming a paralegal or a lawyer, and that basically came at the sacrifice of his family. He didn't really see much of his wife. The job brought a lot of danger and stuff to his wife and his kid, and him and his daughter are like a little bit estranged. I'm not going to say he doesn't see her, but he's just not as present as he probably should be. And the book talks a lot about that in book 1. And I love it. I'm already team Eddie. I'm like, go on, you get your daughter, mate. Go on, do stuff. Be a good dad. But I rated it 4-star because there were just parts of it that were a bit unrealistic. The plot follows Eddie, who gets kidnapped right at the start of the book, but he gets kidnapped by Russian mafia. And they're like, look, mate, our main guy has basically done something wrong, and you need to get him free. We've got your daughter. If you don't get him free, your daughter's going to Jesus, then you're going to Jesus, and we're going to escape back to Russia anyway, so just do with that what you will. And then it's basically one-man band versus the Russian mafia. And just some stuff happens in it where I'm just like, I'm not sure I believe that'd happen. But I still rated it 4-star. It's still class. I'm still excited to get further into the series. I think you should all read it if you like crime and thrillers and police procedural books. It's very good. I'm excited to get into book 2. I'm probably just a bit unfair that I expect as much realism as possible when it comes to crime thrillers. Anyway, do with that what you will. This book made me ugly cry. It's called And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer. I cried 3 times at this book. The reason I cried is because Ellie's nana is currently in a care home suffering with dementia. I say suffering, she's not going to get over it, obviously. She has dementia. It's the first experience that I've had. I don't actually have any of my own nans, granddads, aunties, uncles. I've just got a mum and a brother and sister. I don't know any of my extended family. I've obviously got them. My mum was birthed by a person, but I don't know any of them. So I've never experienced this disease in first hand because I don't have any of my own extended family. Me and Ellie have been together 8 years now. I have obviously adopted all of her family as my own. I love them as my own, and it is heartbreaking to watch someone that you love drift away from you before they actually go. I actually wrote a note in this book. I've got a book journal here. Just so you know, I'm actually going to make my own book journal because it's good, but there's just some things missing. So I wrote a quote from this book, and it says, "It's an awful thing to miss a person who's still here." And then I read that and I was like, that is just horrific. It's so true. Like, Nana Susan is absolutely still here. We go and see her all the time, and she's there. But sometimes we walk into the room and she'll go to Ellie, "Sorry, Duck, who are you?" And she'll call Ellie by her daughter's name. Am I May? Her daughter. She's my daughter as well. Oh my goodness. I should really, script these videos. But yeah, it's just horrific when you watch someone that you love who was absolutely compos mentis a couple of years ago, sat in our front room, going to a shop buying kids sweets, and now she's in a care home and someday she doesn't remember who we are. It is horrific. And this story follows a granddad and a grandson who are sat on this bench and they're just talking about life and they're talking about stuff around them. And then after kind of 15, 20 pages, you realise that all this stuff is in the granddad's head, and it's like memories that he's got, but then sometimes he'll come back and one of the memories is gone, and you can see that it's actually a story of how dementia affects not only the person suffering but also the people around him. It's a story about how the young boy is trying to cope with the knowledge that he is slowly losing his granddad. He's asking his granddad at points through this book, what can I do to help you when your memory's gone? And it's just so thought-provoking. It got me and my wife thinking about what we can do to better Susan's last years on this planet. Things like putting together notebooks with photos in so we can take them around to her and be like, "I know you don't remember this, but this is you with your grandkids." And it's just heartbreaking, honestly. I'm going to shut up talking about this book so I don't make me cry. Honestly, it is just so sad, but also I don't necessarily think I'd say to you have to be in a good place to read it, because I weren't in a good place when I read this book, and it's definitely something that is close to my heart. But it helped me. It helped my wife. It helped us realise how we could help Sue just enjoy life a bit more while she's in a care home. So, Frederick Backman, And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer. Oh, what a fantastic book. Next up, Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook. This is book 3 in Dungeon Crawler Carl series by Matt Dinnerman. This book slaps. I think I rated it 4-star. It's not 5-star, for me at least. The only book I've rated 5-star so far in the series was book 1. And I think that's because it was new. The novelty of a lit RPG book has definitely worn off a little bit, but I'm not going to say that the series has got any worse. I think the writing's got better as the series goes on. I think the plots have got better. The character development has got better, but I think I was just so blown away by book one being so different from anything else I'd ever read before that I rated it 5-star. I understand the hype behind this book. This book definitely dives more into some of the characters. Get introduced to a character called Katya, who is almost a blob. Basically, Katya can turn into anything she wants to turn into. Anything. She's malleable. Molds. Is malleable a word? Anyway, she can do whatever she wants. She can be whatever she wants. She's very good. She's anxious. She almost feels like she doesn't belong anywhere, but then she finds Carl and Princess Donut, who's a talking cat, and it's just class. It's very good. You should read it. This book, yeah. So good. When I say to you a book's 4-star and it's class, you should read it, it's so good. It's because 5-star is perfection, isn't it? Like, you say 5-star for perfection. And there's only a few books that I'd ever say are perfection. And one of them's coming up. This is going to be a 2-in-1. So, Empire of the Damned and Empire of the Vampire. I recently finished Empire of the Vampire. I finished it on the 3rd of January. I rated it 4-star. Really enjoyed it. It was my first ever vampire book. I got to end it and I was like, yeah, that was really cool. Now, if you've never read J. Christoph's work before, he's definitely one of them like advanced writers. I would class him as a fantastic writer. My problem is when it comes to books is I don't really give a shit about writing because I'm not clever enough to understand the difference between good writing and bad writing. But I can read a book when someone is really good at writing and I can be like, oh, I can tell this man can write. Because sometimes it just doesn't flow for me. They use words that I don't understand and they use punctuation where I'm like, whoa, yeah, you can write. Do your writing, Bay. But the vampire lore after a while just got a bit meh. I weren't that bothered about it. I did thoroughly enjoy Twilight growing up. I'm not ashamed to say that, but it's not your typical vampire thing, is it, where it heavily involves the church. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not against the church. My wife's a Catholic, but she can't convince me to go to church. Father Adrian has tried and tried and tried. I think I've turned up to church 3 times, and he's like, Tyrone, come on, I need you here. We need to bring you to church. And I'm like, Father Adrian, I've got a thing on next Sunday. But I might come see you 14th Sunday in 2026. So, yeah, after a while, I realised that vampire lore is heavily involved in the church, and it just weren't something I was that bothered about. So, book 1 got a 4-star. There's some fantastic action in there, brilliant writing. Gabriel de Leon is a fantastic character. Book 2 came, and I was just like, I'm not feeling it. And I know a lot of people are going to say book 2 is even better. But it's better for you, it's not better for me. Reading is subjective, and if we all loved the same books, that'd just be boring. We wouldn't be doing book reviews, would we? Because it'd be pointless, because everyone would just be like, well, I don't need to listen to a review, because we all love it. So, yeah, I think you should read it. I didn't finish it, I DNF'd it. It's a lot of pages, but if you like vampire stuff and you like fantasy, it's probably going to be one of the best books you've ever read. That makes no sense, does it? But to me, it does. Lastly, we've got my favourite book so far this year, which is Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wang, who is the author of... what's it called? Sword of Kaigan. Sword of Kaigan, that's what it's called. That book slaps, 5 stars, but it's different. This book is completely different to Sword of Kaigan. Sword of Kaigan starts off... How many times can I say Sword of Kaigan? Sword of Kaigan, Sword of Kaigan. It starts off like high fantasy. There's wars, there's fights, there's swords, there's magic, and it's crazy. And then about halfway through, it turns to more of a character study about what it's like to be a mum, to be a wife. It's very cultural. It feels like you're in mountains in China. It just feels amazing. This book, don't expect high action. I don't actually think there's a fight, or there's not many fights, and if there is, it's more like fisticuffs. But the magic system in it is insane. It's disgusting, but it's also insane. When I clicked, something clicked eventually. There's a twist when you realise what the magic system is, and then you're like, oh, you minger! Like M.L. Wang thought this magic system up, and she were in a bad mood. It is disgusting, but it's perfect. So it follows a girl called Siona who lives in a society full of misogynistic men, where women stay at home, they cook, they clean. We go back 100 years, and they're just not allowed to do anything that men do. Now, once every, I think it's 10 years or 100 years, women are allowed to apply to become high mages, and no one's ever got it before. It makes it quite clear in the book. They basically just allow women to apply just to keep them quiet. Siona applies, oi, You know what's going to happen. She's strong. But it's not your typical fantasy book. It's not like they're not going to go on an adventure. It's more a story of how the little people within society can make a massive difference if they come together, but also how them little people, when they act on emotion, can make positive or negative changes. It's a story about how people from different walks of life can learn to understand each other just by discourse and actually just talking rather than just assuming, oh, they're a tramp, oh, they're a snob. Like, you know, if you sit down and talk, you realise, oh, actually, you're human and I'm human. We've got a lot of similarities. It's beautiful, honestly. I'm not going to give much away in this book other than saying that it was easiest 5-star I've given it last year. You should read it. Just beware. There's some dark themes in this book, but I will read anything this woman puts out. Like ML Wang, if I've got a request for you this year, just sit down, pick up a pen, start writing, or use computer, whatever. I know it's probably easier, and you get less RSI and stuff like that. Song of Achilles. It's here somewhere, above me. I don't know, I'll edit it here somewhere. I ain't got it anymore. I gave it away to charity, as well as Circe. I gave Circe away because I rated it 3.5 star. I think when I reread that book, it's going to be a 5-star read. And you're going to think I'm crazy. I'm a little bit crazy. But let me explain to you why. Firstly, I rated it 3.5 star. Secondly, why I gave it away. And thirdly, why I think it's going to be a 5-star read. When I went into A Song of Achilles, I'd never read any Greek mythology, Greek-inspired books. I had no idea about Greek mythology. I didn't even know who Achilles was, other than when they say, oh, it's my Achilles heel, which means like, oh, it's your weakness. The only kind of Greek thing I've ever done is I've watched Hercules, and I love Hercules. It's such a good film. I like Disney films. But I knew nothing about mythology, so I didn't know what to expect. So anyway, I went into that book, and I was like, oh, this is cute. But I didn't realise about the kind of historical cultures of Romans and Greeks. So when I was reading it, I thought, oh, no, is this just one of them books that's being inclusive for the sake of being inclusive? So I did some research, and then I was like, wow, actually, back in the Greek and Roman days, it was quite normal for men to be married to women, but then be promiscuous outside the relationship with other men. And I was like, right, we've got past that now, so I'm cool with that. Let me keep reading. And then the first 40% of that book, I was like, whoa, this is the greatest love story of all time. It's beautiful. Not only is it a love story, but it's a story about friendship, kind of like found family, how everyone around you saying like you can't do something, and you're just like, watch me. And these boys just slayed. They were insane. I loved them both. What's his name? Paroculus? Anyway, that fella, you know what I'm on about. The main character, Paroculus. This is one of the reasons I struggle with this book. All these names. Anyway, that lad and Achilles, they slayed. I loved them. And then it got to 40%, and then they went to war, and I was like, I mean war? This is a love story. They aren't going to war. They need to stay together and, like, just love each other and stuff. Bear in mind, I knew nothing about this. And I know there's a film called Troy. I hadn't seen it, so I didn't know there were going to be a war. Everyone said to me, like, oh, this is a beautiful story. It break your heart. And I was like, oh, it's going to be a love story. It's not a love story. Well, it is a bit, but anyway, if you've read it, you understand. So then when it went to war, I spent the entire rest of the book just frustrated because I was like, nah, this isn't what I was set up for. I was set up for a love story. So I got annoyed anyway, and that's reflected in my score for the book. I'm not saying it's a bad book, but you need to understand that when somebody does a book review, they're reviewing how a book made them feel. And that's how the book made me feel. I was frustrated. And I understand for the people out there that are saying, yeah, but if she'd made it a love story, it wouldn't be a reflection on the actual story of Achilles. I get that. But that doesn't change the fact that I wanted a love story. So anyway, the reason I got rid of the book is because I thought I'm probably never going to read that again. But then I started having like epiphanies and stuff, and I was like, maybe if I start reading more about Greek mythology, it'll then become one of the greatest books I've ever read in my entire life. So I'm going to start reading Percy Jackson to my son. I'm going to start reading other Greek-inspired books. And then Folio Society reached out to me and they said, hey, Tyrone, we love your stuff. We want to work with you. So I was like, all right, cool. There was like, pick a book, any book. So I was like, all right, well, you've got a nice copy of A Song of Achilles. Please, can I have that one? Because I plan on rereading it again. And I truly believe that when I reread that book and I know more about that story, I love it. It's just the middle bit. You know the middle bit of A Song of Achilles, when all the other characters come into it, there's other like gods and stuff, and there's other people, and there's a story of Troy, and I was just like overwhelmed. I was like, where am I? It's like, what's going on? Who's Troy? Who's Troy? Is Troy a place? Is Troy a person? Yeah, so that's one of the reasons I gave it away, and two, because I don't have shelf space, which again in this video I'm going to show you why I have to give so many books away, because I just haven't got room to put them anywhere, because my kids take all my room up. The other book that I read last month that I gave away was Fight Club by Chuck Nwick. I don't know what his name is. I didn't like it. Yeah, I wrote a review for it. I'll read a bit of it out for you. It just felt it's not my kind of book. I am surrounded by women in my house. I've got my wife, my daughter, got 2 daughters, got a female dog. I was raised by a single mum with an older sister. I'm not your typical man. I am not the kind of person that needs to go out and jump out a plane for a buzz. I don't need to go and punch someone in the face to make myself feel good. I just feel like this book is very much stereotypical men. You know, you got white collar men who are going to work, having no fun in life, and to find a sort of meaning in life, they've got to go around and start smacking each other in the face. So I understand the premise behind it. I understand that there are some men out there that need that. It just isn't me. So I rated it 2.5 stars, which I think was very fair. I don't think I was being harsh with that. I think I rated it 2.5 stars because I do understand what the author was maybe trying to get at, that there's a lot of men out there who really struggle with their emotions. They don't know how to talk about emotions, so they maybe go and act about it in the wrong way. I'm just not that man. I'm very open with my emotions. I will cry. If I've got something wrong with me, I'll tell my wife. If I'm struggling with my mental health, I'll talk to tens of thousands of people online and I'll tell you all. But yeah, I don't need to read a review. I'll put it on screen or something and you can have a nebby if you want. Yeah, I didn't enjoy it. Now, what should we do first? Shall we do... So I want to talk to you in this video as well about a future video idea that I've got. I think it's kind of cool, but also a bookshelf tour. I'll tell you what, I'll talk to you first about the video idea that I've got. I will start a series, read book 1, and then after I've read book 1, I'm like, that is insane. Let me read book 1 of another series and see if that's equally as insane. I don't know why. And I know for you completionists, you'll be like, oh, that's disgusting. How can you do that, you dirty tramp? But I also, on the flip side, don't understand how you can read book 1 of a series, knowing that there's another 6 books coming, and then carry on going and not read anything else. I've just got such a FOMO. I'm scared of missing out. So when I've read book 1, I'm like, oh, I need to read book 1 in that other series now because someone else has spoke about that. Then I need to read book 1 in that other series because someone else told me that's amazing. So I did a bit of research, Google boxing, to see if there are any fantastic fantasy series where book 1 can almost work as a standalone. So one of my favourite books of 2024 is this book here, wherever it is. Where are you, The Lies of Loch Lamora? Here you are. So this one here. This is part of a series which was planned to be, I believe, like 7 books, but Scott Lynch, I think, had some mental health problems, so he wrote the first 3 books and then just fell off at face of planet. He gets a lot of stick for it online, the same as George R.R. Martin and Patrick Rothfuss. But this book can absolutely be read as a standalone, and if you do read it as a standalone, it'll be one of the greatest fantasy books you've ever read in your entire life. It is funny. It's about a group of kids who are basically thieves. So they don't belong anywhere. They just pass from pillar to post, and then they go and work for this fella who teaches them how to be thieves, and they go around a city that in my head is like Venice. They go around this like Venice city, all being little craps together, scheming and doing heist stuff and just being mischievous little monkeys. It's just fantastic. The dialogue in it is class. There's not many authors, in my opinion, that write good, funny characters in fantasy books. A lot of them are just very like, oh, no, I'm boring, but I've got trauma. And this is just not it. This is funny. So then I got to thinking, what other fantasy books is there where you can like read book 1 and put it down for a bit and not have to stress about carrying on with the story? So there were a few recommendations that I saw online. Someone said, I could read this, which is Terry Goodkind's Wizard's First Rule. So that one, she's a chunky one as well. It's like 800 pages long. And then I started doing some research and thought, what other books is there? So my plan for 2025 is to read some of the first books in series and come back to you and tell you which books are fantastic to read on their own. This is another one, Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. When I told people that I was tempted to read this book, I got a lot of messages from people saying, oh, it's really misogynistic. It's a product of its time, and this book was wrote in, I don't know, 80s, 90s, something like that. I think people need to understand that with some of these books, we can't always hold these authors accountable for their thoughts and feelings when these books were written 20, 30 years ago. Times have moved on. We've moved on. Look, everyone wants equality. All people, I'd like to think, want men and women to have the same rights. And there's going to be some misogynistic men out there who say things and write books where, you know, all the people that go to war are men and women stay at home. And look, I know if it were 2025 and someone wrote one of them books, people would be in uproar. And I'd be the same. I love strong female characters, but also you need to understand that some of these books were written 20, 30 years ago and men were just idiots, weren't they? So, yeah, you just have to accept that. And it's up to you. Read it if you want. Don't read it if you don't. But then other books that people said were Dune. That got a lot of mentions, but I tried reading Dune before, and there's just so many words in there that I don't understand. I don't know if that's too advanced for me. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I've got that, not read it yet. Hyperion. I actually downloaded that this morning because that is on Kindle Unlimited, along with another book that's on Kindle Unlimited. Sabriel by Garth Nix. Yeah, I heard good things about that, so I downloaded that because that's on Kindle Unlimited. What else they're going on about here? Magician by Feist, whoever Feist is. Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. Yeah, I'd agree with that. The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. I keep seeing that everywhere. I don't know why, I just want to read it. It's probably FOMO again. The Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. That's another book that I'm desperate to read. I think there's 2 books out so far, but The Kings of the Wild follows a group of retired hard blokes with swords and shields and stuff. They're all retired and they've come back for one last hoorah. And I think they're like overweight and stuff. Basically, imagine me going out to war and leaving kids behind and being like, Ellie, I'm going to go to war. Kids, I'll be back soon. And I just imagine me going into a field, being overweight and out of breath and knackered all the time and being like, oh, lads, skis in hand. I need some food. So, yeah, that's one I'm excited to read. But, yeah, anyway, what I'm trying to get at is this year I want to spend a lot of time reading some of the series that I've got, but maybe trying to see if I can read book 1 and not carry on with series. I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but look, I read for me, I don't read for you. I just come in here and talk to you about books for you. I like it. I like reading book 1 in the series and then knowing that I can come back to it whenever I want. I write book reviews, I've started journaling, so when it comes to memory and stuff like that, I can just look back on them and remember roughly what they're about and then carry on. But in a minute, you're going to understand fully why I struggle to complete a series when you see how many series I've got on my shelves and I'm just overwhelmed and scared of missing out on some of these series. So yeah, if you know any series that you've read where book 1 was just insane and kind of wraps up nicely and doesn't end on a cliffhanger where you think, actually, yeah, Tyrone, you could probably read book 1 of that. I just think it's a good way to decide whether you like an author's work, whether the kind of plotting and pacing of that author works for you. I know that I love Scott Lynch after reading this book. And I know also that I'm not in a rush to pick up book 2 and book 3 because this is wrapped up nicely. Perfect. Anyway, shall I show you these shelves now so you can see why I have to give so many books away? Because I just haven't got room to keep them all. So these are my shelves. Now, if we go from top left to right, the top left are all staying because we've got Eragon, we've got the first 5 books in the Harry Potter series illustrated by Jim Kay, and then we've got Hunger Games. They're all sexy. Next to that, we've got Dungeon Crawler Carl. In front of them, we've got some standalones. Now, all these standalones, once I've read them, will go. Terry Pratchett, I still need to dive into his work, but yeah, once I've read them, they'll go because I ain't got room for them. To the right of that, we've got some, what's it called? Manga. I want to try manga more this year. Behind them, we've got 3 series. So we've got Greenbone Saga, Poppy War, and the Nevernight series by Jay Kristoff. So, down here on the middle shelf, we have got the Gentleman Bastard series, we've got the Blade itself, Lord of the Rings, Very Good Kind, the first book in the Wheel of Time series, then we've got the Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne, Burning series by Evan Winter, Season, which is part of the Broken Earth trilogy by A. Jemison, and then behind all them books, we've got more books. I don't know if you can see, but these are all double stacked. There's a lot of standalones behind there, but we've got Eragon, and we've got some other fantasy stuff. And then we've got the first 6 books on the bottom shelf from the realm of the Elderlings. We've got 9 books there from Cassandra Clare. I think you can actually read the Infernal Devices series first, and then you can read the Mortal Instruments. But again, untouched. The Scythe series, which I've heard raving things about. Ender's Game and Raven. Then under there, we've got more series. I think we've got, let's have a nebby. I think we've got behind here, what we got? Oh yeah, we've got Hunger Games. Oh, we've got more rubbish on here. A bookmark. What we got here? Oh, that's some Jennifer Barnes stuff. What we got behind here? Oh, we've got Red Rising over here as well. If we go to the next bookshelf, so the next bookshelf we've got V. Schwab's, I don't even know what they call that series, but yeah, is it Dark Shade of Magic series? Dragon Rider, I didn't even realise this is actually part of a series. I think book 2 is coming out this year. Got some medication on top there. I don't know why that's there, but yeah. If you don't use your bookshelves for like drinks and stuff, there's something wrong with you. Further down here, Prison Early series, I really want to get into that. The Tide Child trilogy, want to get into that. A couple of standalones. Further down here, what's this? This is more, oh yeah, we've got the Bloodsworn trilogy. I've read book 1, that were absolutely insane. Need to read book 2. Got some crime stuff down there. Stormlight Archive. Chris Carter's down here, he's a legend. Some David Baldacci. Some non-fiction. Yeah. And some cracks in wall there as well, but we're back. Yeah, so, I mean, do with that what you will. I've got a lot of books there that I've not even read. So when let me just sit down 1 minute. Oh, we're back. Oh, let's have a nebby. Back. I'm out of breath. How am I out of breath from walking from one side of the room to the other? Woo! I ain't got any room. If I was to buy another book now, don't know where I'd put it. I'm already stacking. If you can see there behind me, that's 6 books there, stacked up. I don't know what to do with them. And my wife's not best of pleased, so there's a space problem. I'll be honest, I'm not going to stop buying books. I'll still buy books from charity shops. And look, that's tomorrow's problem. That is tomorrow's problem. This is where I am. So this is why I give so many books away to charity once I've read them. Because in the time that I have read 3 books, I've probably bought 6. And if I don't get rid of some of the books, my wife, she'll just go mad at me. Honestly, she'll go absolutely feral. So I tend to just read books. If I absolutely love them, I keep them. If I thought they were good, I'd just give them away to charity. Charity shops are just so cheap these days anyway. A couple of my local charity shops do 4 books for £1. So in my head, I think to myself, look, if I give a book away, there's a good chance at some point in life I'll find it again at a charity shop if I desperately need it. This has been fun. What do you reckon? I know I keep saying to you that these are the kind of videos I like doing, these vlog long videos where I just talk rubbish and stuff. I'm just never going to be that guy that does that backdrop where they have like a black screen and they've got sexy bookshelves in the background. Oh, my camera's following me. Oh, can you see me now? Can you see me now? That's just not me. And it never will be. So I hope you enjoy this kind of vloggy content because I really enjoy making it. And I'm not very good at editing videos anyway, so. What do you call a fish with no eyes? Psh. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you in a bit.